Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's discussion about Codebusters. I'm John Toebes, and I'm the National Event Supervisor for Science Olympiad Codebusters. I've been working on the event for 4 or 5 years. You also may recognize the name as being associated with the tools tobes.com/codebusters, which are used for writing a lot of the tests. Have to give the very, very important disclaimers. This presentation was indeed prepared using the draft rules, and there could be some changes in the final copy, which will be released on September 6th. And when they're released, those will be the official rules for the 2023 season. For those of you that aren't familiar with Codebusters, it's very simple. The whole idea behind this is that teams will be decrypting and analyzing messages using all kinds of interesting techniques. It's 3 kids that participate in the event, and they are allowed simple calculators. These are the ones you get at the dollar store. Basically, not the scientific ones, just plus, minus, division, and the way the test is scored is it's simple. They get points for solving the ciphers. Every cipher has a certain number of points. They are allowed to make some mistakes, and they get full credit for it. After 2 mistakes, and they start losing points. There's also a timed question at the beginning of the test that if they can solve it in the first 10 minutes, they get a bonus. And then lastly, we're going to identify up to 3 selected ciphers on the test that they're going to get bonus points. And I'm going to talk about those more in a minute. Give you an idea of the types of ciphers. We actually run this event in Division A, B, and C, and there's some ciphers in common between them. For division, we're going to be talking about Division B and C today. So for Division B and C, you've got the aristocrat and the Caesar cipher. That's used everywhere. There's a unique one for Division B, which is the @. It's basically the alphabet reversed. A is Z and Z is A. And then also you have, for Division B and C, you've got Baconian, which is my favorite one. New for this year, we have the cryptorhythm and fractionated Morse, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail. Morbit and Pollux, which are the Morse code-based ciphers. Patristocrats, which is just the aristocrat with the spaces all removed. Porta is a cipher we introduced last year, which it's similar to a visionary. It's a table substitution cipher. The rail fence, which is the only positional cipher that we have. Xenocrypt, that's Spanish. There's going to be several on the test. And then for Division C, we still have the Hill cipher for them doing 2x2 and 3x3 matrices. As I mentioned, there is a special bonus question. Up to 3 questions on the test we mark as a special bonus. They will not be aristocrats, patristocrats, or xenocrypts. We want people to have an opportunity to reward people who solve the other types of ciphers. What's important is that when you solve it, you have to solve it in such a way that you get full credit for the question with no penalty points. That means if it's a Baconian, they can have up to 2 mistakes, or if they're computing like a Hill decryption matrix, they can't have any mistakes at all. The real key here is that if they solve 1, they get 150 extra points in addition to the points of the question. If they solve 2, they get 450, and they solve all 3, they get a full 750 points. Also, for Codebusters, sometimes instead of solving the cipher, the decoded phrase, we're going to actually ask them to tell us what keyword or key phrase was used in order to encode a K1, K3, K2, or K3 alphabet. K3 is only for Division C. And an example, so for example, we had, this is a key phrase. And that would generate an alphabet of, you can see THIS, then the IS is a duplicate, A, and then key, and then PH, and the H has already been taken, and then you get the R, and then the AS and E are gone. And in order for them to know what the key phrase is, because they're going to have to give us the letters that are missing, we give them a little answer block that they have to go ahead and fill in. And very important, when you're doing a keyword answer, 0 mistakes are required in order for them to get full credit. Now, for people who have done Codebusters for a couple of years, there's a few changes this year that we've done. We added the Porta and the rail fence to regional events. That was actually a mistake in the rules last year that didn't get noticed until it was too late to fix. So they previously were only at the state and the national level. Now you can have them at the regional events. We did eliminate the Visionaire cipher. It's a big table, and the Porta cipher covers all the capabilities that we want them to learn in the Visionaire cipher. So we went ahead and took that away. We did change the time bonus. So instead of 3 points per second, it's now only 2 points per second. What we're finding is we're trying to balance the test a bit more. And then for some fun, we added cryptorhythms. Those are math operations done with letters. We'll talk a little bit more of that in a minute. And the fractionated Morse cipher, which I'll also talk about, it's a combination between the Morse code and the keyword phrases that we have in the K1, K2. Lastly, we reduced the number of hint digits for the Pollux and the Morbit ciphers. This allows us to do some, give them a little bit harder problems at the national and the state levels. One of the new ciphers we've added this year is called the cryptorhythm. These are really fun because what they do is it's a good combination of math and letters for the students to work on. Basically, what we give you is a mathematical operation written with letters. So in this particular case, you can see up here, ciphers plus science is equal to interact. And the students must determine what numbers map to which letters. Well, there's a couple of clues that you have in this. Right off the bat, you can see that this is two 7-digit numbers that are added together and produces an 8-digit number. That immediately will tell you that the first digit, the I, must be a 1, because that's just the only way that you would get a carry in. Also, you know that the C and the S can't be zeros because they're the leading digits. Now, the problems will always be exactly one solution. And what we're asking for the answer, you can see this down here, is we're going to tell them the numbers that we want them to come up with the words. And it may be just 0 through 9, or in this case here, it's a sort of a random jumble. But what's nice about this is as the students figure out some of the letters to mapping to the numbers, they may be able to use the words that are there to figure out what words they are to get the rest of the mapping. So it's a combination of working the problem both as a word problem and as a math problem in order for them to solve it. Another cipher that we added this year is the fractionated Morse. And I'm really excited about this one because what this does is it brings together a combination of the Morse code, which they already have with the Pollux and the Morbit ciphers, combined with the keyword approach that we see in the K1, K2, and K3 alphabets. Now, the way this works, and you can see this nice little table here, is we pick a keyword that we're going to encode the cipher with. So I've gotten really creative. I'm just using the word keyword here. And we construct the alphabet the same way that we construct an alphabet for a K1, K2. We take our keyword or key phrase, remove all the duplicate letters, and then go and take the remainder of the alphabet, obviously dropping the letters that were in our keyword. So in this case here, we have keyword A, B, C, F, G, H, I, J, K, M, N, P, Q. And of course you get Z that's at the end, which is kind of an interesting thing because if a keyword doesn't include Z, then that means that Z is going to map to XX dash. And you'll notice that the mapping starts from left to right. The first letter of your keyword is going to be dot, dot, dot. Then the next letter is dot, dot, dash, dot, dot, X. And then the second dot's changed to an X. So dot, dash, dot for the fourth one, et cetera, going on. And at the end, the X and the Z are going to be the XX dot and XX dash. You'll notice that XXX doesn't exist because that's 3 X's in a row, which you generally don't see in a Morse cipher. So the way you solve this is we'll give you some clues about what it is, and you start mapping the letters. So in this particular case, our cipher, we were given F, A, J, C, S, C, D. And we see that the F in this particular case maps to a dash, dot, dash. Well, that's not all of it. So when we get the A, which maps to a dot, X, dash, we now have the first Morse letter, which is dash, dot, which happens to correspond to the letter C. So this is one of these types of ciphers where you work it two different ways. One, you work it by solving what's the logical Morse characters that they can be, but also this is where the alphabet really helps you to identify what things are. So for example, if you notice that H was dash dash dot, and you knew that J was dash dash X, then immediately tells you, and there's a gap between the two, then immediately tells you that H must be there. In this case being dash dash dash. So taking advantage of knowing what the keyword, where the keyword might be, and how the rest of the letters at the end of the alphabet are going to be mapped, and it's going to be in order, makes it a lot easier to solve this type of a cipher. All right, let's talk about how you can be successful, right? What are the things as coaches that you want to do in order for teams to be successful? I know this is obvious, but practice, practice, practice. You'd be surprised how many teams we see come in, particularly at the regional level, that the first time that they've done, even though they're on the team, but the first time that they've done any of these was actually on the test. I can see the difference between the teams that have practiced. This is an event that allows 3 students. Get 3 students on the test. You're really going to want one of those students to know Spanish, because the Spanish Xenocrypts are worth a lot of points. Also, a lot of times when you get someone who knows Spanish, or Spanish is a first or second language, they take a different way of thinking about how the letters are formed. And so they end up being able to solve some of the problems quicker. Learn to divide and conquer. This is with 3 kids on the test and the number of questions. There's nothing wrong with splitting up the test. Somebody is really good, for example, someone may be good at the Baconians. And so let them go and attack all the Baconians. You really want to learn Morse code. I mean, we provide you the Morse code tables on the test, but if you know Morse code, I mean, everybody knows ... dash 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 ... being SOS. So there's 2 letters you get right off the bat. But if you know a lot of the other letters, it goes a lot faster for solving them. And a lot of the better teams have learned, take advantage of up to 2 is wrong. So if you know all but a couple letters, don't spend the time. If you know everything else is right, don't spend the time on it. Just go on to the next. Also, the team has to decide what works best for the team. Sometimes 100-point questions are really fast to solve. So what do? You work on one 500-point question for a long time, or 500-point questions. That's something you need to be talking with the team so they can make that decision when they're looking at it, know when to cut and run and go on to another. And really, if you get stuck, just try something, particularly with the aristocrats and patristocrats. When you're not sure what it is, pick a letter. It might not be right, or it might be right. More often than not, you're right, particularly if you use the frequency table. And that might give you some clues, or you go down that path and find it, that's not it. Well, you know something that it isn't. As I mentioned, practice. Keep practicing. You cannot practice too much. Also, if there's a K1, K2, K3 alphabet, take advantage of it, particularly when you start recognizing, oh, I see an I, J, there's a splank, and then L and M. Well, that one and the next one must be a K in there. So when you do that, that helps you answer some of the, fill in some of the letters quickly. Special bonus questions, 750 points for solving 3 in addition to the points of the question. That's a big difference on a test. Also, with the calculator, learn to use that calculator, particularly the mod 26 function. You use that a lot when you're doing the Hill cipher. Also, for those teams that are doing the aristocrats, learn pattern words. There are lots of like people and that. A, B, C, A, it's the letter that. People look at it and they recognize those. And then, of course, this year with the cryptorhythm, learn the math rules. Learn, as I mentioned, if you have two two-digit numbers and you add them together and produces a 3-digit number, you know the first digit's got to be a 1. That's just the way math works. You can also know that if A plus B equals D, well, then that means you know that, I'm sorry, if A plus A equals D, then you know that D must be an even number. It just has to work that way. All right, where can you go for resources? Obviously, there's the National Event page, and there's links on that to other resources. So I'm not going to repeat all of them there. The Science Olympiad, the North Carolina Science Olympiad webpage, I update it and put hints and clues on there too. So that's another good place to go. Obviously, the clinic binder, we're going to give you a really nice solution guide document that's been built up over the years of the various things. And don't be afraid to go to the search engine. You'd be surprised how many tools are out there for the various ciphers. Sometimes someone else has a different way of explaining it that may work better for your teams. And if you have specific questions, you can email me. I've got my email address there. Also, there's test generation tools. As a coach, you really want to generate your own practice tests. Plus, there's almost all the previous tests that are out there for you to load in and print out. There's literally 1,000 questions out there, 1,000 ciphers to work from for you to work with. And we're constantly updating the tool. If you find a bug or you have suggestions, there's a place where you can go ahead and submit the issues. And then if you have questions about the tool itself, go ahead, just send email to codebusters@toebes.com. That's myself and the other developers that are working on the project. We will answer that and see if we can figure out anything. If there's a problem, we'll fix it. A couple of things to be aware of with the tools. You can also generate an interactive test to practice online. So if you don't want to work on paper, although I do recommend working on paper, is a big difference, but there is an online test that you can do. That's really great if your students are remote or if you meet at odd times. The test, when you're generating a test, even a sample test, it does tell you what division that they can be used for. So when you're building the test, it will warn you if it isn't appropriate for that type of test. You can also schedule a test. And as a coach, you have the ability, there's a coach mode where you can watch the students work and make suggestions to see how that they're going along. I should also mention that there is a solutions page that gets generated with the test. So if you as a coach are trying to figure out how to solve a cipher, we provide a solving guide for most of the ciphers on the test. And if you got any questions, feel free to ask. We also will post on Twitter. We'll post samples every so often. You can find that NCSO _CB if you follow us on Twitter. We hope you have a wonderful day.